Hello Santa Fe, I'm Carlene and welcome to Living Santa Fe. Today our guest is Asenath Kepler.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are. Thank you.
Where in the world did you get a name like Asenath, and what does it mean, and what background is that from?
Well, I get asked that question a lot, as you can imagine. It is actually an Old Testament name from the book of Genesis. And I have, like a lot of people in the United States, I have a mixed lineage. My mother's family came from Greece in the great wave of immigration in the early 1900s. On my father's side, they came over in the Mayflower, believe it or not, on the English side, and they loved biblical names up there in New England. This is an old biblical name that's been in the family for 300 years. And she, Asenath, or Asenath, which is the I guess, correct pronunciation, if it's not anglicized, was married to Joseph of the coat of many colors. And she's mentioned about 3 times in the book of Genesis.
I'll be darned. I didn't
So
know
there
that.
you go. It's a long story, but it's the truth.
You can see I haven't read Genesis in quite a while. I should.
It's a good book. It's an interesting book.
I had a friend of mine send me a book here not too long ago. I started deciding I need to read some of these things because I love to read. And I thought I should read the Bible, but some of it bores me.
Some of it's pretty racy, though.
It's very racy. That part I like. Right. But she sent me the Bible for Dummies. And it talked about all these different names and who begat who. This one begat that one and begat this one. So, it was kind of interesting. And so I'm glad to hear that. I'll keep my eye open for that name.
Yes. Now, and what's interesting, just as a footnote to that, is every once in a while I will run into someone whose family has roots in New England, and they recognize the name because it was very popular in the 1700s in New England. So there you go.
Might have been part of the Salem witches, too.
Maybe.
Okay, now, some people have labeled you as being highly emotional. What do you say to that? I
say I have fire in the belly, and I'm glad for it, because it is, in this day and age, passion goes a long way in getting things done. So yes, I would say I have an emotional component to myself, but I'm a trained lawyer, and sometimes you use it for effect, and it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So you're an attorney?
Yes.
Where'd you go to school?
I actually went to Creighton University School of Law, but I got started in my young years here in New Mexico. I've been in New Mexico for off and on for 50 years. So that winding road took me through the Los Alamos school system in elementary school, through junior high, then we moved away and spent a great deal of time in Nebraska, which is where I learned about Creighton and went to school there for law school.
Creighton's a big school for dental.
Yes, and we have a lot of dentists in New Mexico who have graduated from Creighton. It's a well-known Jesuit institution, and I got a fabulous law school education there. And one of the things that the Jesuit schools always impart is a sense of social responsibility. And when we were studying to be lawyers, we were always reminded of the importance of giving back to the community. So it was a very good education, not only academically, but philosophically as well.
Where were you born?
In Fort Yukon, Alaska, 10 miles above the Arctic Circle.
Did you see Russia?
Not from my house at that point, but there were a lot of Russians above the Arctic Circle, as you know. I mean, they really colonized it quite a bit. But the reason we were in Fort Yukon at my birth is my parents were medical missionaries for the Episcopal Church. And they worked in a native village providing medical services to the Native Americans who lived there in Fort Yukon. And when I was born, it was about 70 degrees below zero, I was told. And so my father was a young doctor at that point, not a specialist in obstetrics. But they couldn't get the obstetrician in from Juneau or some such place, and so he had to deliver me himself. Mm-hmm. So that was quite an adventure because I was the first child for both my parents. So I've heard a lot about it over the years.
Maybe that's why you have fire in your belly, because you was born in that cold weather up there.
And I still like the cold. As we discussed today, it's a snowy day as we're speaking, and I have a husky mix I have from the shelter. She loves the snow, and so do I, so maybe it's in our blood.
Mm-hmm. Your parents were missionaries.
Medical missionaries, yes.
Tell me a little bit about your mom and dad.
They were both in the medical profession. My father was a physician, my mother was a nurse. They did a lot of work in public health over the years, probably as much as they did in private practice, if not more. And my father was also a professor at the University of Nebraska Medical School, where he taught medical ethics. And that's what took us back to Nebraska, ultimately from New Mexico. So they were both very dedicated public servants in that regard. My mother was a visiting nurse also for a lot of her career. And so we were always focused on really what we can do to help our neighbors and our community, and that was imparted on me at a very young age, and always took precedence over making money.
Mm-hmm. Your siblings? Did you have
two
siblings?
brothers.
Two brothers.
Two great brothers who are still in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And one is with the United States Postal Service and has been with them for about 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is a salesman, and a very good salesman, I might add. And he is currently now in the recruiting business internationally.
You mentioned Los Alamos.
Yes.
How did your parents end up in Los Alamos?
It's an interesting story. My father was the first of his long generation of New Englanders, or upstate New Yorkers, to move west when I was 8 years old. I mean, permanently move west. That was aside from the brief foray into Alaska. And when we decided to leave upstate New York, apparently he was enamored of New Mexico, and so he took a position in Silver City as a physician in a clinic there. So we spent a number of months there, and then something opened up in Los Alamos for him. He was a practicing pediatrician, and so he took it, and we moved up there, and it was really, those are the golden years of my childhood. Los Alamos was a really sort of a magical town, and I run into people all the time from those years, the late 50s into the early 60s, and we kids had a lot of freedom on the street. We played around a lot in the summer, kickball, baseball, sandlot baseball, swimming, and the schools were great. We just formed a lot of strong friendships and had a great time as kids up there. And
you went to the Los Alamos school. You went through the Los Alamos school system. Did you graduate from high school there?
No, we left in junior high, and that's when we went. My father took a position in Washington, D.C., and received his master's in theology at the same time. And then he taught medical ethics, which was something he was interested in doing. And then he took a position as a professor with the University of Nebraska Medical School. And so I moved to Nebraska, and we were there for many, many years.
So you got used to snow over in Nebraska, I bet.
I did. Oh, my heavens. When I came back here in 1980, which is where I've been ever since, in Santa Fe, people would talk about the snow, and I just sort of look at them because it is a different kind of snow here. It's more manageable in a lot of ways.